So hi everybody and welcome to episode 41 of Level Up, 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions and votes really do drive the show. Please use the Slido link that we're going to post in the chat to vote up the questions that you would most like answered. And of course, to add some of your own as well, that would be really great. Level Up is live, as you know, Mondays, 8 a.m. From the UK. And also again, here at this time, 2 p.m. on Fridays, live streamed to both YouTube and LinkedIn. And afterwards, we post a high definition audio file as a podcast, and you can follow us on your favorite podcast platform. We have hundreds of downloads now across the episode, so please do have a look out for that. And if you're outside walking around and enjoying a stroll and you want to keep up with your career, then you can listen to the audio version. All right, now the whole show is driven, of course, by yourselves. So please get those questions in and vote up the questions that you want answered. We've got a great lineup for you in the coming weeks. And let's jump straight in and meet our panel for today. Joining us for the first time on the panel is Sudharshan Balasubramanyam. He joins us today for the first time. Sudharshan is the Director and Lead Auditor at Bravati Technologies. So welcome, Sudharshan. Great to see you.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah. So just to give you a very brief background about myself, I run Bravati Technologies and Services. We are system integrators, consultants, auditors, and trainers in information technology related aspects, and especially in governance. So glad to be on this event. Thanks a lot.
Perfect. Thank you very much indeed, Sudharshan. Sarbojit Bose rejoins us. He's the owner and the MD over at Cyberservices in Singapore, regular contributor to Level Up. Welcome back, Sarbojit. Great to see you.
Well, thank you, Nick, for having me, and thank you all the panelists. It's a joy again to be here and to be with all of you and Sudharshan for the first time. I think we'll have this a wonderful 1 hour for IT audit.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Nirmalan joins us next. He's the CEO and principal consultant over at KenVisa, who specialize in helping clients adopt best practices in IT and management all over the world, actually. So welcome back, Nirmalan. Lovely to see you again.
Thanks, Nick. Nice to see you all back. And I'm looking forward to answer the questions, and it's a pleasure being here.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Mart Rovers is the president at INTERPROM. Mart has been a supporter of Level Up right from the very beginning. He puts IT governance, information security, and business improvement pretty much at the heart of everything that they do at INTERPROM. So welcome back, Mart. Great to see you.
Thanks so much, Nick. Thanks for having me. And twice in 1 week, I mean, that's quite something. I think I earned that badge now, right, that you're handing out. Either way, I'm looking forward to this one as well, and to a great question. Thank you.
I'm going to make a note of that, actually. I agree with you. I think we're a little late on parade with those, Mart, so we will get to that, my friend. Etienne Shardlow, you may remember, is the senior consultant over at Symphonise Consulting in South Africa. Although I think it's fair to say that he moves around a bit, and now that coronavirus restrictions are being lifted, he's working in different countries as well. They're always working at pace with their clients to align business and IT and drive value. Welcome back, Etienne.
Yeah, good to be back. I don't have to, thanks a lot, raise the issue of badges. I'm doing mine. So, yeah, it's good to be back. Let's try and make IT auditing interesting today.
Yeah, and it's one of those subjects that people can form a brilliant career in, and they become such an integral part of the team that drives up standards, drives up governance, really does help businesses perform in the modern era. So we'll talk a lot more about that in a few minutes now. If you feel that as you're watching this that you too could answer some of the questions that are being put to the panel, then just simply volunteer, okay, in the chat, and we'll be in touch to welcome you onto a future show. Question Master for today is Charlotte Miller. She is joining us from a very windy Thames Valley here in the UK. So Charlotte, welcome to Level Up. And we'll look forward to seeing you any moment now. There we go. I think the wind is blowing the internet around today a little bit.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, a little bit beaten and bashed around in very strong winds actually in Western Europe actually today. So if you're watching this afterwards, you may be wondering why, we're all kind of so focused on the weather, but honestly, outside it is blowing a gale. All right, very good. Charlotte, may we have our first question, please?
You can. We've got a question from Emma Sullivan. IT audits can be perceived as a necessity and not something that is perceived as positive. What can IT auditors do to lower anxiety levels?
Okay, it's a really good question. This is more about how you do it, I suppose. Mart, what are your thoughts on this? Then we'll go to Etienne.
I think as an auditor, you always want to come across as somebody who's trustworthy, reliable, somebody that you can depend on, who's with you, and not so much there to judge you or make you feel bad.
I completely agree with that. Etienne, is that something that you'd agree with?
Yeah, I always say to people, internal auditors and IT auditors are, a lot of the time they're internal auditors. They're part of the same organization, and so they are your friend. They're there to help you find the holes so that you can fix them, so that you don't get yourself into trouble either legally or just through finding yourself vulnerable to threats.
I completely agree. Nirmalan, how do you go about it?
I have a bit of a different view. Nowadays, a lot of things have changed. So what we see these audits as more of a improvement. So the audit outcomes is not going to point out at somebody. It's not with a blaming culture. It is taken very positively in the form of continuous improvement.
Yeah, understand. And Sudharshan?
Yeah, well, I think I agree with all the panelists and what they have said so far. But I think what to add here is we just need to understand what is the impact of not carrying out something with respect to security or governance of IT, because there's so much money being spent on IT today, so much of automation. So I think from a IT auditor standpoint, we need to make sure that people feel, and we need to understand the domain we are in, so that people become that okay, this is a person who knows the business and who's come here to advise us on how to use IT for the benefit of the business. So I think then the anxiety levels come down.
Yeah, I completely endorse that. That sense of belonging, and understanding the primary purpose of the business, if you like, its vision and mission and goals and so on. That makes it so much easier for colleagues then to be able to listen to, the findings, first of all, that an auditor may be, discovering, and also to start thinking about how might you remedy things, how might you improve, how might you build on the good practice which is already there. So really great question to get us going today from Emma Sullivan. So thank you very much indeed. And Charlotte, let's move on, please. We'll take the next question.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a question from Sudharshan. Does IT auditing have a direct effect on a company's supply chain efficiency, or are there drawbacks on the same?
Okay, so IT auditing across the supply chain. This is always something that needs a lot of collaboration, in a particular ecosystem for organizations. If you're working in discrete manufacturing or process manufacturing and so on, then your supply chain is used to collaborating for a whole variety of different quality management type reasons. Etienne, start us off with this, please, in terms of supply chain efficiency.
Yeah, look, I'm just going to make the point that it adds and can contribute to efficiency in all areas of business. So supply chain, definitely. But IT auditing helps you manage risks within IT. It helps you find gaps. It helps you continually improve, and it can have a direct effect as well as an indirect effect on any part of your business that uses or relies on.
Thank you very much. And Mart?
And not only efficiency, like Etienne said, throughout effectiveness, as far as meeting needs and expectations, and meeting requirements, meeting goals and objectives. So definitely, IT audit is one of the contributors to that. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And I would say that, engaging in the right way, with different partners really does help them as well. Because if they're a smaller organization than yours, they might not have the dedicated expertise to be able to apply to things. And by you demonstrating that you have that, you can actually help them raise their game as well. Sudharshan, you wanted to add some final thoughts on this.
Yes, IT auditing is now, if you see, most of the supply chain has been automated, using packages like SAP or any other ERP packages. And if we do have IT auditing, it actually helps to make sure that we don't get attacked with a supplier. As Nick, you just mentioned that there could be a small company who is supplying something for me, and they should not become the reason for a ransomware attack or any other attack. So also we want to see how well their IT systems are integrated into our systems so that there is a seamless working. So I think it's very important that IT auditing should be there as part of the supply chain governance. Thank you.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And that may also extend, of course, if you're using, public or private cloud, if you're using hybrid cloud in your IT architecture within your IT estate, as most of us are now for one degree or another. Very few of us are entirely isolated from the the global ecosystem, and there's a lot of folks out there running code, and that you need to have some sort of understanding of what is, whereabouts is that kind of touching your organization, and is it appearing on your critical path somewhere, just so that you can be aware of it. Very good, great advice. Thank you very much indeed. Charlotte, let's press on, please. We'll take our next question.
Thanks, Nick. Question from Emma Sullivan. Who do auditors usually report to the CIO, to another C-level?
Okay, Sarbojit.
Hi, to be back. And well, IT audit, we must understand it's a part of governance. And governance must come from the very top. And that is from the a committee, which should be center C-level and the board of directors or the senior management. So ideally, they should be reporting to such a high level because of the independence. If they report to the CIO or the CEO, then the independence component is impacted. But however, we will see most organizations, they are required to report to the C-suite. But if you see these basic standards from ISACA and others, they do recommend the independence.
Okay, thank you very much. Etienne?
Yeah, Sarbojit kind of summed up everything I was going to say as in terms of independent. You do need your IT auditors to be independent. So although they will have IT skills and they will have knowledge and understanding in the IT space, when they are doing or performing their role as an auditor, it really does need that kind of separation. You do need to be independent. And so reporting directly to the CIO, probably not a good idea. As Sarbojit said, report at a higher level is usually a better approach. So report to the C-suite as a group, or maybe to the strategy or steering committee, or even better, as Sarbojit said, to the board. You do really want that kind of separation.
Yeah, completely agree with that. I mean, everybody, what I would have a think about is separating the line management function, okay, from the reporting function and sharing of findings and good practice in this kind of thing. Everybody needs a line manager. Everybody has a line manager. There's somebody, even the CEO will report to the board, okay, in a larger organization. So everybody's accountable to somebody else, okay, and there's no difference here. If you're performing an audit function, you need to be the voice of common sense in the room, speak truth to power and all of that good stuff. But I think as line managers, we can create those conditions. We can help others feel confident to go about their day-to-day work and be the best contributor that they can be and speak that truth to power. Nirmalan, how do you go about nurturing that? How do you go about bringing the best out of people in this situation?
I basically wanted to answer something what I have observed recently.
Okay.
When it comes to, as both speakers said, independence and that assurance is very, very important. No second question. But what I have observed recently, I do see if it is an external audit, it is being reported to the board. But when it comes to internal audits on a continuous improvement perspective, it is being reported to CIOs. So that basically they go through a continuous process in preparing themselves. And finally, the external audit will they have done so.
Right. So it's a kind of a incremental process, a continuous improvement process, therefore, which does become more BAU, and that's a good thing. And I think it should be possible, even as if you're even as a team leader, you will know that there are times where you wear different coloured hats, all right? And as you progress through your management career, when you get to the C-suite, whether it's the chief risk officer or the chief information officer that we've been describing, you really do need to be able to wear those different hats to create those circumstances in which your team, your contributors, are able to have the headroom that they need to be able to do their job really effectively and add value in everything that they do. All right, very good. Thank you very much indeed. Let's move on, Charlotte. If we can, we'll take our next question.
A question from Emma Sullivan. IT has many areas expertise. What should an IT auditor be specialised in regarding IT areas of expertise? Should the auditor be actually specialised?
Sarbojit?
Hi. Now, well, as an IT auditor myself, I come from infrastructure. I am not, my strength is not in application, but I need to do audit on application. So I would need to take the help of others who know application better. In fact, I would have a team who would do the job, my hands and legs, to collect the data. So they can run those tools and get the things. And we would normally use templates and questionnaires. So an auditor cannot be a master of every place. It's not possible. But wherever we are, that's our strength area. But we should take advantage of others to make the audit successful.
Thank you. Sudharshan?
Yeah, as Sarbojit just mentioned, it's impossible for any one person to be an expert in all the areas. It's not practically possible. If you consider the length and breadth of the IT industry today, it's very huge. Now, what we really need to do is we should know which button to press and get the information. That's the intelligent way of being a good auditor. So it's not necessary that we need to be specialized in particular areas, but yes, we need to be strong in at least a couple of areas so that we add value to the business. Now, two things. One, we should know the business first. Then, what are the critical things for the business from an IT standpoint? If we can connect these two, and then we bring in some experts, as Sarbojit just mentioned, we should be able to actually run a very effective audit. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, it's so important. The one thing that I would suggest to colleagues that they consider is to do with how you ask questions, your questioning technique, because we can learn these. I've had the privilege previously to go to a short masterclass, which was given actually by a gentleman who worked for the Metropolitan Police in the UK. And he was describing how you set up rapport with people who are in difficult situations. And he spent just 30 minutes or so talking about questioning techniques. So there's lots of this content available. You can read it in books, you can watch it on YouTube, you can Google it, you can find out, but build up those different questioning techniques so that you can set the person, the respondent at ease and start to gather in the right kinds of information so that they feel comfortable and you build that bridge of trust for them to be able to share what they need to share with you. Okay, necessarily need to be an expert in all the technologies. I completely agree with you. It's too broad now for any one person to manage that, but you can improve your skills at how to find things out, how to discover things, how to turn your curiosity into actionable findings. All right, very good. Now then, if you're watching us online, and I know many of you are, and you're thinking, I've got a question, just type it in the chat into LinkedIn, all right, or into YouTube. One of our colleagues will pick it up and they'll bring it into Slido for you so that we can put it in front of the panel. Be great to have some live questions, please, from our producers who are the audience who are out there online. Very good. Let's move on. Charlotte will take the next question.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a question from John in Manchester, UK. Are there particular steps to become an IT auditor?
So how would you go about this at the beginning of your career, panel? What were the initial steps that you would take? Sarbojit?
Well, as Bala mentioned earlier, the first thing is to know the business, because audit is not finding fault. It's to add value to the business, to see where things are not going as good that they should be, and then make some good recommendation to make up. And the second thing is, today, some people say that all organizations are IT organization. So whatever industry, wherever you are, IT is a very core. So to be an IT auditor, you must understand the business, and you may be doing anything, doesn't matter. You start with an audit, because auditing skill, that means what Nick was mentioning about questioning QT and try to probe more. Now, that's something you cannot just pick up like that, that you have to build up over time. And if you have that, and as a trainer, I have seen people coming from non-IT and shine as an IT auditor. So I would say, yeah, wherever you are, you have a good chance to be an IT auditor as well.
Thank you very much. Sudharshan?
Yeah, I think building on what Sarbojit just mentioned, a couple of things we need to, I would really suggest ISO 19011, which is guideline for auditing of quality management systems. But then it applies across all industries, all standards. A very good beginner's document, I would say. And one of the things that we need to build up is what is the kind of emotional intelligence we build into our auditing skills. So how do we empathize with the auditee? So these are some couple of things, the soft skills, rather than just the technical skills, would also help us to actually become a good IT auditor.
Yeah, most certainly. There's a brilliant community online, it's been going for many years. Isaka.org, okay, are their website. So do have a look on that. We'll post a link to the Isaka website into the chat. IT audit is a fantastic career as well. Okay, the good news is they don't throw you in at the deep end. You start off and usually you have somebody, to listen to and to work alongside, get some top cover from, and then you kind of progress over time. So it's a really, really good career though, and it's one that, actually can give you a really good earning potential as well. So just consider that a little bit. You enjoy working with people and you enjoy seeing different aspects of business. it's a great thing to think about. All right, very good. Charlotte, may we have our next question, please?
You can, Nick. We've got a live question from Dr. Danny Ha. What kinds of knowledge and skills should be equipped with an IT auditor?
All right, so the knowledge side and the skills as well. So just while the panel are thinking, I would say have a look at, from a knowledge point of view, have a look at some of the international standards. ISO 27000 kind of springs to mind a little bit there. Sarbojit, what kind of knowledge and skills should an IT auditor try and acquire?
I would say it's just not the knowledge and skill, but what we say ask. Not ask in asking question. So A is something that, okay, let me come out to that. S is the skill, K is the knowledge. Skill is something that you acquire over time, and knowledge is something that you have to know as the basic underpinning truth. Now, just now in the previous question, we did talk about some of those things, going to ISO and going to ISACA and some other of those, standard bodies which Nick mentioned. To know the knowledge, you can build up the skill. But one thing is very critical, that is A, and that is attitude. If we do not have the right attitude, becoming a good, successful auditor could be very, very difficult, because auditing job requires to deal with people, and deal with people in who are at a very defensive part. So you have to be really, what Bala mentioned, that the emotional intelligence, the EQ, to empathize to people and how to get the information out. So that is very important, I would say, more than the knowledge and skill.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So we've got that approach, the how-to, that's coming through thick and fast to us. So we're very clear on that. Thank you very much indeed, Sarbojit. Etienne, skills and knowledge then for the IT audit community.
Yeah, a lot of what we've already said. So, people skills, because a lot of what you're doing as an internal auditor is engaging with IT staff, with the people who are actually implementing these systems. And so you need people skills, you need knowledge of your business, you need business skills, and you need a good kind of broad general understanding of how IT supports business. And it's also a really good idea for you to build up audit teams with some specific skill sets. So I like to have teams of auditors that are completely cross-functional, and you've got a whole range of different skill sets. Some very technical, others more business, and having a nice mix.
Yeah. I often feel that the value in this is in the process as well as the deliverable, because it's that discovery phase. When you're talking with colleagues, within the scope of the particular audit that you're carrying out, you get those light bulb moments, and that process itself can be hugely value add. All right, as well as the report that comes out the other end is important. Of course it is, because it provides the snapshot in time upon which there is evidence of improvement. 6 months later, 6 weeks later, 6 days later, 6 hours later, depending on what the finding is. Hopefully there will have been some action taken to improve based on that audit. So very good. Thank you very much indeed, panel. And a great question. So thank you, Dr. Danny, for your contribution. Really good. Let's move on, if we can, please, Charlotte, and we'll take our next question.
Yes, of course, Nick. We've got another question, a follow-up question from Dr. Danny. What kind of question skills should an IT auditor have? Open or closed questioning skills, fact-based questions, compliant-based questions? Please suggest more.
All right, we will do. By all means, Sudharshan, you go first. To Mart.
Yeah, it's always a good thing to start with open questions. And we use a mix of these. Any experienced auditor would use a mix of questions. It's not restricted to one type of questions. It could be open questions at the beginning when we want to understand a business process or a IT process, how it's being carried out. And then we move on to confirmatory questions like closed-end questions or alternative questions. And finally, when we complete most of the work, and then we do ask the auditee sweeper questions. So we could actually ask them anything else. And believe it or not, some of the auditees do respond to even the sweeper questions. And fact-based questions, yes. Auditing is all about facts. Evidence-based approach is the basis for auditing, and that is, I think, very important.
Thank you very much indeed. Mart, what would you add to that?
I would mix it up, the questions, open and closed. Sometimes a closed question could be an icebreaker, just so people start hearing their own voice. Maybe they start, you put them a little bit at ease, because you simply ask them yes, no questions, or maybe some easy ones to ease in that don't require a long answer before you get into totally open questions. But when you question, I always like it when auditors also build into the question, this is actually the requirement that I'm asking about. This is, the compliance that I'm looking for. So the person being interviewed doesn't feel like, where is this question going to? What is the auditor asking from me? What are they expecting? So not on this gotcha kind of questions, I would say. Again, to put the person at ease, and definitely need fact-based for sure. I mean, that's one of the things you should focus on when you're an auditor. You want to audit facts and not just made up things. Questioning skills is really important. Yes, it's one of those skills you should be pretty good at. Good communicator, good listener, because sometimes people have a way of explaining themselves not in the most straightforward way, but then pick up on the things that they are trying to say, right? Go a little bit further and then look beneath the surface, as in this is the intent of the answer. Same as with the intent of the requirement. Clear that.
I'd certainly agree with that. I think just to expand on those, let's get into business culture a little bit, because this does vary. And often IT auditors later on in your career, you're moving out of one business culture into another one. So you may be working for a multi-site organization where the culture in one site, you may be in the same country, but the culture, actually the business culture in different sites can be different. Imagine the business culture between the headquarters and the plant where they're manufacturing things. That could be quite different, okay, in the same country, but very different business culture. So have a think about how you mix these things up. I think that there is, on occasion, merit in using leading questions to set a rapport, to get a rapport going, and to break that ice and so on. But you should abandon leading questions pretty quickly if you're going to discover the truth and the reality and get people's thoughts and ideas out. Okay, rhetorical questions are sometimes useful, but they can actually irritate colleagues, particularly if they're mid-career. If you already know the answer, auditor, why are you asking me? Right? Okay, it's just going to rub people up the wrong way. You can certainly, in group sessions are great. Ask those overhead questions to the group. See who's going to come forward and start. See who the natural, kind of social leaders are in that group. And then direct your questions to a particular person, maybe even somebody who's a little quieter, so that you gather their input. Maybe they've been the person all of the way through who actually knows the answer. And the noisy, shouty people in the meeting are the ones who are bluffing. So, whole variety of different questioning techniques. We could spend a whole hour, I think, on how to use those most effectively. But for sure, they are at the heart of being a great consultant. And whether you're consulting for audit or whether you're consulting for other reasons, they're kind of at the heart of everything that we do. So brilliant question. Thank you very much, Dr. Danny. I think we might invite you back, my friend, again, to give us different questions and different ideas, and maybe even to join us here on the panel in the future. Very good. Charlotte, let's move on, please, and we'll take our next question.
Sorry, Nick. We've got a question from Rob, Perth, Australia. All job descriptions ask for experience, but I'm just starting out. How can I gain experience as an IT auditor?
Okay, Etienne?
So generally, people begin their career as an IT auditor internally. You'll join your internal audit team. And you don't always need experience in auditing to join a team. So if you are inside an organization, you can volunteer to become an auditor. You can kind of, offer to help out with an audit. Auditors always need people to run up and down and, maybe ask some of the easier questions, collate documents, or just file certain things or document findings. So there's lots of ways that you can get audit experience without actually getting in over your head with kind of the whole audit process. If you are not employed and you're looking for an audit position, that does become a little bit more difficult. But try and find people who are looking for junior auditors who don't necessarily have those intense experience requirements.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Great idea. I would say exactly that. Volunteer is the way in. Okay, put yourself forward, help out, carry the bag, do anything to get going. All right, and to build that internal relationship. Then you get invited in to do more and more. I'm going to invite now Mart Rovers just to join me for a few minutes. Just want to put a couple of questions to you, Mart, if I may. Pick your brains a little more on this topic. So we've talked about some of the questioning techniques. We've talked about some of the knowledge. All right, if that auditors may need. Let's talk about some of the character traits, though. If you're going to build a career, you need a certain way of doing that on an ongoing basis to sustain it. What are some of the character traits you would say that are important to develop as an IT auditor?
I think integrity is the first one that comes to mind, and I think that's also one of the most important one of all the character traits. Have integrity as a person. It's part of being the professional as an auditor. To be a professional when you audit, and always be fair. Be somebody who's not there to try to catch you. It's somebody who's with you on your side. So be truthful. When you audit. In other words, don't try to make up things or look for something that is not there. I've seen interviews with auditors that really ran down to rabbit holes, as in, what are we still auditing here? So don't go off on tangents, and be accurate as a person, as far as when you find something or when you report on something. Make it definitely fact-based, evidence-based is another one that comes to mind, as far as look for facts, and not as in opinions. That's another one.
Right.
The way of questioning. Yeah.
Right. I completely agree with that. There's a big difference as well when you are explaining your findings. If you've found something, then you have evidence for that finding, and you can just explain it and say, okay, when we were looking at this is what we found out. And that's much easier to do than actually, the situation where it's conjecture, where you are extrapolating from the facts, and you're trying in some way or other, you may be trying to be helpful, but actually it's not helpful if you extrapolate beyond your findings. Okay, there may be your experience that you were able to offer might be value add. You may be able to say, in these circumstances, we should consider X, Y, and Z, but try not to kind of jump to the conclusion. Is that something you'd agree with?
I totally agree. I've unfortunately experienced auditors that, they have done audits in the past and they have seen evidence as in this is how it works in other organizations. And then sometimes they take that as the only truth that's out there, as in there's only one way to comply with this requirement or this part of the audit. In other words, they look for something that might not be there because there's no two organizations that comply to requirements the same way. And even when you throw in your own experience, that can also be as well, that might have been your experience. This is how we're doing it. And yeah, it's slightly different than what you're used to, but still, it should qualify. So that requires a little bit of flexibility, speaking of character traits again. Also from the auditors, as in be open-minded, as in there's more than one way to comply, in essence. Yeah. Which brings actually another point, Nick.
Yeah. Go ahead. So I was just going to ask you.
Yeah,
that's all right. We've got a little bit of it. We're a long way apart. Okay, viewers. So we've got a little bit of latency in the line today. But I wanted to just explore with you this sense of curiosity, all right, and how you bring that to life in an organization, because some of the very best auditors I've worked with have this sense of fun as well about what they do. What they're doing is important, all right, and they do it with very professionally. They do it with gravitas. They, do it properly and all the rest of it. But they still bring about, engagement and fun and human interaction. How important do you feel that is to make sure that these things happen in the spirit in which they're intended?
Of course, enormously important. The audits that I've been part of and audits that I've seen, they're being asked to come back for the next audit. As in, this is the auditor that we want. This is the auditor of choice. And that's, of course, that what you'd like to accomplish as an auditor, that you're being asked to come back again and again and again, because you're being perceived as somebody who's thinking with you and who's trying to be there for you, who not only finds some nonconformities, but also finds some areas where you shine and also makes that compliment, as in, this is something I've never seen elsewhere, as in you really stand above the crowd when, what you just told me or what you're showing me here. And that should be the other side of the story as well, as in your overachieving ways, as in, which is, not always a bad thing. So that type of relationship you try to build as an auditor, whether it's through fun or whether it's through value that you add to the organization. Because auditors also have a tendency sometimes to, give you a few hints. They call it recommendations, although, right, they're not consultants, but it's as in, all right, thank you, that's good to know, food for thought. As in, just to show, you're with them, you're trying to help them. And that's the whole purpose of an audit anyway.
Yeah, I completely agree. It is the key differentiator. I think how you do this is the key differentiator between being something that colleagues have to endure or being something that colleagues actually look forward to learning with you as you go.
Exactly.
So excellent. Thank you very much indeed for those thoughts, Mart. And just on the kind of wider notion, INTERPROM, very successful organization and a very dynamic organization, and the clients that you've worked with, this kind of approach, it strikes me as something that you bake into every engagement.
It is. It's just like what I just mentioned. It's all about building that relationship. Also, as an auditor, it's part of what you do. That's all what it comes down to. And the more you get to know the organization, the more your audits will become of value to that organization. The longer that relationship that you have, the more you know the organization, and the better you can help them in essence. So there's something to say for having a good relationship with, and also as an auditor with the organization that you're working with.
Yeah, Perfect. All right. Thank you very much indeed. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Martin. Really appreciate that. Let's move on then, Charlotte. We've got time to fit a few more questions in before we wrap up. So let's press on.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a question from John in Manchester, UK. Is our IT auditor a good career? Are there many opportunities for an IT auditors?
Okay. So super quick, Sarbojit and then Etienne.
Yes, as I would say, today, more and more organizations are adopting to IT as their core of doing business, as more and more people are going into digital transformation. So IT audit is becoming more critical for any organization. Now, whether we need to do a financial audit or we need to do any other compliance audit or we need to do anything, IT is the base. So everyone is doing IT audit to fulfill all the requirements. So there is a great opportunity these days. And well, because of COVID-19 and the post-COVID era, we would see that even though it has been not a very good thing for many of us, but for auditors and people in IT, it's a blessing in disguise. So look out, watch out, keep your eyes open. There are opportunities coming up for each one of you.
Okay, thank you. And Etienne?
I would say definitely. It really is. It's an interesting career. IT auditing for many people outside of the audit space might think it would be dull and boring, but you learn so much about the business. You learn so much about IT through audits. So yes, very interesting career. And in terms of opportunities, well, with increasing dependence on IT, increasing threats in the IT space, and increasing compliance requirements, the need for internal and for IT audit is increasing all the time. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And if you go on to most IT job websites, particularly the aggregator sites, and there are many of those around the world, and just look for IT audit, you'll find many vacancies, okay, in that discipline and in related disciplines. And we'll come on to talk about the other thing a little bit more in a few moments. Charlotte, let's take our next question.
Thanks, Nick. I'm going to skip a couple of questions and go to Paul in Thailand. Can you recommend any ways to increase my knowledge as an IT auditor? Any blogs, events, education, or networks you recommend?
Okay, well, the first one I'm going to say is what I mentioned a little earlier. Sarka.org have chapters all around the world. They're invariably easy to find on the internet, no matter which country that you're in. Southeast Asia, Paul, you'll be able to find Sarka chapter and colleagues, near you. Also, I would say on the back of that, just look at when they are meeting, either virtually or physically, okay, and see if you can go along to one of the events and meet with some like-minded people. Sarbojit, do you have an ISARCA chapter in Singapore where you are?
Oh yes, we do have, and the president is a very good friend of mine. And in fact, the world is really small. And there's also a Thailand chapter, Paul. So I guess you're coming from Thailand and your last name is not Thailand, right? So there is. And there are, when you go to the ISACA website, there are also blogs, there are also many components you can. Now, you don't have to be a certified person to subscribe to them. Just go ahead, do that. There are free stuffs out there. And then if you want to be a member, if you are thinking of really enhancing your knowledge, and I guess you are an auditor, otherwise you won't be asking for it. So yes, you can be a member and you can learn a lot of things. And you can also learn a lot of other stuff from, there are other chapters, not only for IT audit, but you can enhance your knowledge in IT If you go to ISC Square, you can have a good knowledge about projects. If you go to PMI and many others, to know the business as whole, so that as an auditor, you can add value to your customers.
All right. Okay. Very good. I'm just going to offer this on behalf of the panel. Okay. That all of us are available on LinkedIn. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, you're kind of thinking, I'd like to find out a little bit more. And by all means, connect with us on LinkedIn. Would be happy to help you. Okay. So explore those resources. I think we've got time for one more question, Charlotte, before we begin on our final thoughts. So, Charlotte, can we have the next question, please?
I'd like to share a question from one of our panelists. What is the future of IT auditing?
Great question. Great question. Sarbojit, I'll come to you in a moment. Let me start, though, with Sudharshan, if I may. Sorry, Sudharshan, we can't hear you.
I think the world is getting smaller using technology and automation, digital transformation, as Sarbojit had just mentioned a couple of minutes ago. There's been a huge impact on all industries, irrespective of whether you're in manufacturing, retail, space research, whatever. So when you look at it, so how does IT auditing fit into the scheme of things? Are we going to be relevant even in the future when so much of automation is happening? So one of the things I would always say is that irrespective of whatever the automation, ultimately systems and programs are still built by man. Okay, so we will need the IT auditors. It's just that we need to have now new skills in order to actually audit the future technologies like AI. We have machine learning. So how to audit blockchain, for example. So this is something which I just recently, I myself studied and got myself knowledgeable about how to audit the blockchain, because it's a very complex technology. So I think this is where we need to upgrade our skills. But yes, we are still required as IT auditors in the future.
Yeah, great insight. Thank you very much, Etienne.
Yeah, I was also just going to talk about the fact that automation is really playing an important role in audits. Audits can now be a lot more thorough thanks to automation. It does make the auditor's role a lot easier in many aspects, but that human element is always going to be required. And someone needs to translate these findings. And that still requires that human touch. And so I don't believe automation will ever completely replace the role of an auditor. And I'm always reminded of that old saying about who watches the watchmen, who's going to audit the systems that are doing the audits on our behalf. So yeah, I think the roles will always be required.
Okay, thank you. And briefly, final thoughts, Sarbojit?
Right. Well, I would like to extend what the previous two gentlemen talked about. Is now audit will of course be impacted by automation and different technologies. And what will happen is auditing, as we know, has got different IT audit, non-IT audit, finance audit. It's all going to come together, integrate as one audit. And the other thing is we will have AI coming in, but of course, we will also have the ethics part of it. And there are a few other things, which is the human factor, which the machines, as of even today's age, will not be able to fulfill through the AI. So that's where we will have to move. Of course, the data collection will be automated. There are other things to be automated, but decision making will be a human component. So that's the future we are looking forward to.
All right, thank you very much. Nirmalan, your thoughts before we wrap up?
On the same lines of the question, what I was thinking is the auditor's role is going to change. Though that we were doing a lot of traditional auditing, automation has created opportunity for auditing. The practices like Agile, DevOps, SRE has created a new opportunity and new trend in auditing being an ongoing process. So what I feel is auditors' role maybe get diversified, maybe it may be incorporated into some other roles as part of it. All these are going to be a possibility in the future. We'll have to wait and see, but we will have to follow the technology and the practices to ensure we adapt the right thing and we capture the things rightly in giving best value to the business.
Absolutely, absolutely agree with that. When you're thinking about enablement, you're thinking about business progression, innovation, creation of new value, and you're also thinking about managing and mitigating risk. So I think thank you very much indeed, panel, for your thoughts on that. The future of IT audit rather is safe, okay, in our panelists' hands. I think. Drawing on your experiences around the world. So look, let's go for some closing remarks from the panel. Mart, we'll come to you first, and then Etienne.
Closing remarks. I want to mention 2 ISO standards for anyone who's interested in exploring opportunities in your career. That's ISO 19011, 19011, and also ISO IC 21. Both standards have basic information for any auditor you should know about. So that's maybe another way to explore, is this something for me? With tens of thousands of organizations just in the IT space being certified, there's a huge future, and you will never be out of a job in essence if this is something like. Plus, it keeps you on your toes, and you'll be following cutting edge things. And if you're an external auditor and you like to travel, hey, this is your job.
Thank you very much indeed, Etienne, and then Nirmalan.
There's lots of resources. Contact us, panelists. Have a look at those ISO standards. Lots of information out there. The Institute of Internal Auditors, ISACA, there's plenty of organizations. There's lots of videos online. There's plenty of information out there. Reach out to someone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It.
Nirmalan, thank you.
Yeah.
Nirmalan, and then Sarbojit.
I think ISACA is one of the best from the past so many years, and that has guided many professionals in this particular field. Also, make sure that you are specialized on few specific areas, and also keep your curiosity and passion in learning the technology and especially the business in ensuring value for your employer.
Great advice. Thank you very much. Sarbojit, and then Sudharshan.
Hi. I would like to just bring to the basic, as I always say, IT audit. It's just on my palms. So one side, what needs to be done, what has been done, and make sure you find out the gap there. So whether it's IT, non-IT, that's the basic job auditors would need to do. So we should be looking at all that can make the business do better. After all, we are there not to pull the business down with faults, but to enrich them. So
thank you.
keep that in mind and enjoy the
positive
job.
thought. Yeah, great positive thought. Thank you very much indeed, Sarbojit. Sudharshan.
Hi. I actually go back to 1970 Future Shock, the book Future Shock by Alvin Toffler. I think it predicted, one of the best futurists, I would say, predicted today's world in 1970. So how the world would be. So I think we should just be ready to accept change. Even as an IT auditor, we need to accept change. We need to keep learning. That's the only truth. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. Brilliant advice. Charlotte, your closing remarks, please.
Certainly an interesting and intriguing world of IT auditing and IT auditors. Not as easy to say when it's said several times in a question, but thank you to our panelists and to the audience for the amazing questions that we've received. Another tongue twister of an episode. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Next week, we'll make sure that we get some even trickier questions, all right, to read out loud, Charlotte. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you to our panel. Now, look, if you're getting value from the Level Up series, then please do hop over to our YouTube channel. Just search for APMG International. You'll find us easily enough. Click that little subscribe button. And also you'll see some live streams coming up, which are listed below. Next, we're going to be focusing on Monday on how to break into the world of IT service management, either as a stepping stone before specializing in other roles, or alternatively, as a career in its own right. Next Friday, we'll be focusing on how do you go about building a culture of agile change in your teams and in your organizations. And then the following week, we're going to be looking at how to engage stakeholders. So if you're running projects and you're thinking about stakeholder engagement, how to get them really, truly involved and adding value in the right and proper ways, that show is most definitely for you. Okay, so look, thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Great job to our live viewers today for sending us the tricky questions that we can put in front of the panel. Do think about downloading the podcast version, and we will soon see you on the next show where you can level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much, everybody. Bye-bye now.